I understand you want the windows. I just can't agree with you. The location of the loss did not have that high of wind.
There has to be an assumption, if you look at the wind reports, that during a wind event where the winds lasted at hurricane and tropical force winds for a period of 24 hours, you have to at least think through the fact that the weather report is not going to cover everything perfectly. It's not going to know about straight line winds. It's not going to know about maybe small tornadoes. It's not going to know about lots of things. And that's why we have to look at the actual conditions in the field to know different. We've seen countless times where we've had wind events that were not showing up very good in CoreLogic because there weren't spotters and weren't showing up in lots of other ways because they just didn't study it to that level at the Weather Service. You know?
I get that you tested them, but isn't it possible that they were already damaged before the peril?
All right. I get this a lot. So to say that the window wasn't damaged before the peril, no, it wasn't, but we weren't here before the peril. But we can also say that windows typically don't fog, and they usually don't fail on the two elevations that get the most wind while not failing on the other elevations if it's not peril related.
Could the water you see under the windows have come around the windows and not hurt the windows?
To say that the water went around the windows and to say that they're not damaged because the water went around them, I guess there is, in a very minute possibility, I guess there is the possibility that the frame of a window getting inundated with water, sitting in insulated environments that had water on them, and coming through underneath the window might be okay. It might not affect its usable life. I guess there are situations that do that. But I just don't think that's the norm. And in this particular case, we saw that the windows actually failed. So we know that the windows were taking water because they failed pressure tests. They failed in the way that they had missing or extruded seals. There was just kind of prima facie evidence there.
Yes, there are two that are fogged, but nothing else is fogged.
A window doesn't have to just be fogged to prove that it's got a problem, but keep in mind, you're basically saying that none of the windows should be covered.
How can you be sure of the number of windows that actually failed? How can I be sure that the testing is not biased?
The way we understand that they're actually failed is we put a system on each one of the windows which does not allow us to run a manual function on it. So we're working off of a standard which can only be run by computer and cannot be altered. Therefore, it makes for really good testing. And in this case, about 48% of the windows were damaged. And those windows, of course, like I said before, were on the two elevations that were most affected by wind.
Well, if I agree to the windows, you are going to want a bunch of work inside also, and that is going to blow up the claim.
It's not blowing up the claim. It's not blowing up the claim. If actual damage is creating a situation where there is additional damage. If we're going to replace the windows, yes, there's going to be a little bit of drywall damage. There's going to be a little paint. We're not talking about knocking down the world here, but I mean, it's just a little more scope. That's all.
What if I just gave you a bunch of other money on insulation, more drywall, maybe some other things, and get out of having to deal with the window?
You know, part of me says do that, but here's the problem. At that point, you're basically running a scam to some degree. And then I've got to go explain to the insured why the windows aren't on the scope of repair, even though we paid for the windows. So it's hard for them to delineate at that point, and we're putting it in a really screwy position. That's all.
I get your point. I just have to prove the win to be able to pay for the windows without getting a lot of grief.
Okay. How about this? What if we get a report from a meteorologist who actually studies the data and can show us that what actually happened here? That should correlate really well with the findings we did with window testing.
Okay, if you can do that, then I don't think we have a problem.
Thank you. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to go to this level, but I think it's reasonable to go to a level to prove a point whenever the point is made with science. After all, whenever we work on these claims, wherever we work on them, and anywhere in the claims industry, or the claims tribe, as I like to call it, it's just a glorified science project. That's all it is. Nothing else. Thanks, man. Peace.